So first of all, thanks so much, Jeroen, for inviting me. I'm very happy to be here. I'm also very happy you are all here and are interested in this topic. And like Jeroen says, or said already, I will talk a bit about life-centered design. I gave my presentation the same title that I gave a blog post in 2019, which is From Human-Centered to Life-Centered Design. I thought it would be fun to like take it on again, but this time I have a subtitle. I want to give you 6 reasons and opportunities for change in design. So I want to be more concrete today with that presentation for you and really like show you 6 ways how you basically transition the design practice a bit more towards life-centered design. And yeah, before I start, a bit about me. I'm Katharina, like Jeroen said, I'm from Germany. I'm actually a freelance UX designer. Last month, I had my 10 years anniversary of being a freelance in UX design. Before that, I studied information design. And I'm also, by the way, a mom of a wonderful daughter. And on the side, since 2014, I am also a lecturer at Stuttgart Media University. I'm teaching UX design and screen design there. It's my 19th semester already. I sometimes can't believe it. It doesn't feel that long, to be honest. And on the side, during the weekends, I spend my time exploring life-centered design. I co-founded the Life-Centered Design Collective that Jeroen is also part of. I also founded the life-centereddesign.net resource repository, or it's a resource hub. So in case you are interested in this topic, you can go there, and there you will find links to books, articles, like communities, all of the things that might be interesting for you. I collect that there. I work on that together with my husband, so shout out to him as well. And I do other things on the side. For example, I co-founded in our local community a non-profit organization that is helping people who want to like build something, create something, do something, and we are providing inspiration, information, resources to them. Yeah, so and also maybe hopefully soon I will also co-found a little working group inside a larger German nonprofit organization that will be about design for sustainability. So a lot of work on the side, but my main work is being a UX designer. So you might recognize this in my presentation today as well. Let's start with a quote, because I think that's enough about me. This quote is by Mike Monteiro. Some of you might know him. Mike Monteiro, for me, stood out because of his like really interesting and important work in the design ethics department. I think a few years ago, he was like one of the most influential people driving this conversation about design ethics. And this quote is from one of his books, because he's also an author. He co-founded the design agency Mule. And this quote is from one of his books. And he's saying, "The world is on its way to ruin, and it's happening by design." Yeah, so I guess I'm not starting my presentation on a really positive note. I'm sorry. But I think it's good. I think it's good what Mike Monteiro is doing. He's really like pointing his fingers on the things that sometimes feel uncomfortable. I think we designers, we sometimes feel like we don't have any power, and therefore we don't have any true responsibility. We are just little designers, you know what I mean? Of course, I think we've grown from that a little bit. Not all designers feel that way anymore, but the matter of fact is that design is powerful, and I think that's a good starting point for this presentation today, to really like see that. Yeah. And that's also why I want to give you those 6 reasons and opportunities for a shift basically in design that we can make. And I think there is a good foundation for that. And that's also why I'm calling it opportunities, because I think there is a lot we can build on in design. And that is where I want to start with. And why? That's also why I first want to have a look on where design stands today, because in order to know where we need to go or how to develop to the next evolution step, we first of all need to know where we stand today. And if you would ask me, hey, Tada, what is design today? What I would look at is human-centered design, because human-centered design is what I got introduced to back in 2010 when I started studying information design. It's what I learned. It's what I've been working with ever since. It's what I see other designers refer to, whether they know it or not, but it's basically what I see everywhere where design is happening. So the good thing for us is there is an ISO standard, I think it's called in English, that is about human-centered design basically. And so there's also a definition for human-centered design. And if we look at that definition, of course, and that's not a surprise, there is a lot about human needs, user needs, effectiveness, efficiency. And as a little side note, side information, maybe you know that, it was actually, before it was called user-centered design. You might have heard that term as well. Some like use it interchangeably, but it's like there was already a transition from user-centered design to human-centered design, in the sense that we renamed it to make sure that people understand that design is not only about the primary users, but we need to include more in our consideration. And I think that already shows that there is a good development here happening, and it already shows that human-centered design is not like completely short-minded or narrow-minded. And what you also see in the definition is that there is also already the term sustainability. So the approach of human-centered design is supposed to enhance sustainability as well. So I think it's a good starting point. But should we stop there? I don't think so, because if I look at how I practice human-centered design, how I like the tools I got introduced to, how I see other people practice human-centered design, I don't see a lot of considering non-human needs, for example. I see a lot of really awesome tools that help me or you, that help us consider human needs, the context of use. Like we have personas, we have stakeholder maps, we have empathy maps, we have customer and user journey maps. So all of these tools are really amazing to understand the problem, the context, the primary, secondary users, so the human stakeholders who are affected. But I don't see that many tools that help me like think in a longer time span and also in a wider context. Sorry. And on top of that, if we look at user experience design, which is what I practice, like I told you, user experience design is very focused on human needs, psychological needs. The reason for that is the deep link or interconnectedness connection basically between human needs and well-being. So we know that if we fulfill certain psychological needs, it will lead to satisfaction and well-being. And that's why we UX designers love those needs so much, because what we want to create are positive human experiences. And there as well, we have a rather narrow view on this term well-being, for example, and what it means to satisfy a human being. It's rather narrow, but for me, that doesn't mean I want to stop being a user experience designer, because I don't think you can make a whole industry go ahead and stop now with their endeavors towards creating positive user experiences. And I think a lot of companies also invested a lot of money in that, and they just arrived at valuing user experiences, and now telling them you have to stop, I think it will be difficult. And that's why my approach at the moment is I want to stick with user experience design, but I want to like bring it to the next level basically, and bring life-centered design to user experience design. And that's what all of my efforts are going toward. Also, with my presentation today for you, I hope I can bring some of these things I've been thinking about the past years also into your heads, and you can like bring them to your companies and projects. And the first point I want to talk about, I already touched on that with the quote by Mike Montero, is the responsibility and power of design. So I think it's a good starting point for us to first think about that. And I have another quote by Victor Papanek. I think he's probably the most influential thought leader, early thought leaders in design. I also have his book in the back. I didn't even remember. I got a heart by Erica. Thank you, Erica. I didn't even remember I have the book, but I wanted to order it. And then I went to my bookcase and I saw that I already got it. So that was a fun surprise. And Victor Papanek opens the first edition of his, of this masterpiece, basically, back in 1985 with the words, "There are professions more harmful than industrial design, but only a few of them." So like Mike Montero, he's not only positive about design. I think both of them, they are designers, and I think both of them believe in design, but they also see that design can be harmful. And I think they also see that design has a huge power, and therefore we designers have a large responsibility. And I think that is understandable, because if you think about it, what we as designers basically do is we design human behavior. We design how people act. We also design what people believe in, and how they make their decisions. And every product you see and every information you take in, for example, also this presentation, every process you encounter, everything was designed. Whether the person who designed it was called a designer or not, it was designed. And I think that goes to show how important design is and how much responsibility we have to be mindful about that. And I think what Victor Papanek and maybe also Mike Montero are referring to is that not every product we design and every service we design is in the end actually good for the greater good, so to say, like for a large group of people in the long term, and also for our environment. Sometimes it's only good to satisfy short-sighted desires of users. Sometimes it's good for companies to earn money, but sometimes it's not actually also good for the environment and for other people in other areas in the world. But I think the good news is that I truly believe that designers are easily reached with a concept such as life-centered design. And why I believe that is because I was easily reached. I first heard the term in 2019 in a podcast episode, and I was immediately intrigued. I Googled it. Back then I didn't find that much about it, but I started talking about it. And my Instagram followers, I had quite a few back then because I was still active. They also were immediately intrigued. They wanted to find out more. And now if you look up life-centered design today, you find a lot of people writing about it, doing amazing work. I mean, look at Jeroen, what he's doing. It's awesome, and there's so much happening, and that goes to show how easily designers are reached. I mean, it has only been 4 years, and so much happened since then. And that's why I believe that designers who have that much power and responsibility, they can act as early adopters of life-centered design, and they can promote life-centered design principles from the bottom up, from the top down, peer-to-peer. And yeah, we will make life-centered design, or whatever you will call it, the default thinking in design, is what I hope and also kind of believe, to be honest. So what can you do today, or what can you take with you from this presentation regarding this first point I wanted to make? Is, first of all, I think you should take a minute and truly acknowledge your power, and that you can make a difference, and however small it sometimes might seem, but it makes a difference. And with that, I'd recommend to reflect on what you are doing today, how it feels, how do you like your job? Does it feel right? Do the projects you work on feel right, and the clients you work for? And if it doesn't feel perfectly right, then I think that's a good thing, because I think that's the first step for change. It will make you more open for new opportunities and more receptive for learning new things, which I think is the next important step. You should educate yourself, and maybe also educate others. There's so much to learn about life-centered design and related fields. That's why I built life-centereddesign.net, to help other people learn. And lastly, but I think maybe most importantly, just be vocal about your beliefs and be vocal about the things you learn. I think our voice is probably our greatest asset in this endeavor. Sometimes it's hard. I let me tell you, I stopped being too like vocal about what I do, because it's like it doesn't always 100% feel awesome, and it's also like a lot of work, so I don't share that much anymore. This presentation is like the biggest sharing project I've done for a while, but I'm happy to do it because I think it's important. But I also understand that it's not always easy. I at the moment I'm in the stage where I like still want to take everything in and learn, and yeah, sometimes you forget to share, but I think it's good. The next step, or the next point I want to touch on, is the design mindset and design tools, which I think are true superpowers when it comes to the transition to life-centered design. And I think if you would ask 10 different people what they say design is, I guess you will get 10 different answers, but there is one thing that unifies us, and it's the way we work. And the way we work is also, I think, what makes design so special. Yeah, what do? We do research to understand the needs, the user needs, the context of use. We facilitate different information sources, expert opinions. We prototype ideas. Jeroen told you will also learn about prototyping, which I think is very important. We converge, diverge, we test our prototypes, our early sketches and assumptions, and then we work in iterations. We don't just stop, but we iterate and try to improve. Yeah. And I think this way of working that we designers are really used to, like I said, it's powerful. It helps us create products, like, for example, new apps, websites, which is what I mostly do. It helps us create services, but it can also be applied to larger scale issues and large problems. And I think sorry, it's already being applied to those issues, which is also what you will see when you read this article by the Design Collaborative. Donald Norman is one author of that post, and they write, modern design has grown from a focus on products and services to a robust set of methods that is applicable to a wide range of societal issues. These design methods provide powerful ways to develop practical approaches to large, complex issues. And yes, to even start solving one of these large and complex issues, I believe that we need to do a couple of things, and I repeat myself, but I think many of those things are already ways of working that designers are used to. So we need to see and understand the big picture, the system behind the problem. I think there we need to like practice a little bit more, is what I feel like. And to that effect, we also have to look beyond the symptoms. I think we are used to looking at symptoms, but we need to also look at the root cause of problems. And on the other end of the spectrum, we also have to consider a longer time frame, not only like look back to the root cause, but also to the future. Maybe there will be unintended consequences in a long-term future, and we need to be able to consider that and see that, foresee that. And what we already do, what I already told you, is facilitate different voices, and that's also what we need to do. We need to learn from others and seek out a variety of experts to fully understand the problem we want to solve. And of course, we are used to empathizing with users, with humans. We need to keep that, but we need to expand in the sense that we also have to empathize with non-human life and see how that might be affected. And it needs to be considered in our design projects. And that's how I would summarize the transition I'd like to see. I think it's a cool summary, to be honest. I think we need to expand in 2 dimensions. One dimension I see is the dimension of the actors and context that we consider, and the other dimension is the time. So we have to move from focusing on human needs and only the context of use of a product or a system, to considering the needs of all life and also a whole complex system. And we need to move from focusing on only like the short time span of the usage of a solution and the direct effects that has, to considering the whole life cycle of a product or solution, and to the indirect and long-term effects that solution might have. And regarding the design tools, we designers, we have a lot of really amazing tools. I already touched on tools before that help us empathize with users, that help us understand complex problems and also contexts. And that tools can be of value for life-centered design. We can reimagine those tools to be a little bit more wide, like we could redesign them to consider a wider context and actors and consider a longer time frame. But I think we also need new tools. I think it won't be enough to only redesign the tools we already work with. We also need new tools, and there are already some new tools developed. I think, for example, there is the Impact Ripple Canvas. It's inside the book Design, Think, Make, Break, Repeat from Martin Tomic. For example, and the Impact Ripple Canvas is a cool tool that helps you consider those or foresee those unintended consequences. So maybe you want to look at that as well. So what can you do today? I think an easy thing to do, if you haven't done so already, which I guess you have, is look at the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, simply to know what big picture problems we agreed on we need to solve. And then maybe the small thing that is very important, though, is you can bring this enhanced designer mindset that I was talking about to the projects you already work on today. And you can try to really listen deeply and consider with everything how our life might be affected by that. You can point out grievances to your colleagues and simply ask why more often. I remember a project, it was a small thing, but it was important, I think, where at some point I was wondering, but why do we have to throw away this material inside the process? And I was asking why, and they were explaining to me, and then I was asking why again. And in the end, we arrived at, we don't have to actually throw away that material. We can design a solution for that. And then we can save that material from being wasted, basically. It will save money, but it's also good for the environment, you know? And the only thing I was doing is I was being a designer. I was facilitating experts who were talking and who were sharing their knowledge. And I was just asking why. And it's as simple as that, but it had a huge effect, at least for me. And yeah, I think that's the little steps we can start doing today. And if you like, you can make it a fun exercise, maybe also inside this. Maybe you've already done so. I feel like you can reimagine the tools that you are used to. And maybe some companies have like tool sets that they like to refer to. You can go ahead and take some of them and redesign them. That could be very fun. And like always, I'd like to stress how important it is to learn from others as well, which is what you are doing today, and share your learning. So when you finish this course, then you should definitely share what you learned. I know there are some messages in the chat. I can't see them now, but I will refer to that later. If there's something really important, just like raise your voice. Other than that, if not, I will keep on going with my third point, which is about behavioral design. I think behavioral design is also really interesting, an interesting designer power. So I was already talking about how we UX designers like to consider psychological needs due to their link to satisfaction and well-being. But they are also linked to intrinsic motivation. And together with other factors from behavioral psychology, they basically make up the ingredients for human behavior and action. So UX design is kind of also linked to behavioral design. And if we want to understand quickly what behavioral design is, I think we can just look at how Wikipedia explains behavioral design. And they say that it is a subcategory of design which is concerned with how design can shape or be used to influence human behavior. Okay, and I think now that you know what behavioral design is, and you might have known before, I think it is rather easy for you to imagine or understand why behavioral design got so popular in the past years. Because a company basically being able to design how their customers behave, it's like it's really intriguing, right? And yeah, but we can also see, I think that also means that it's not always good. You know, it's not necessarily used for good if companies use that power, because what is good for a company is not necessarily good for the larger context, for the environment. And yeah, I think they are probably more focused on how the behavior of their customers is beneficial to them. I guess that's the reality. But I think that the same power can be applied to do good. Yeah, I think you can design human behavior that will result in a good effect for the larger good, for all people and our environment. And I think the holy grail would be to design regenerative products in that way. So like design human behavior that will in turn regenerate. But I think the least we can do is design alternatives to the unsustainable need satisfiers that we are using today. That's also why I brought you this this quote. So that's, I think, the least thing that we can do. So take the need satisfiers we have today that are unsustainable and not good, and just replace them with need satisfiers that are sustainable. And like I said, it would be perfect if they would also be regenerative, but if they are less harmful, I'm already kind of happy. By the way, as a little side note, I also created a framework for my students that will help my students make exactly that. So make use of psychological needs and the knowledge about that to make to create a human behavior that is good for the environment. So it's a little bit more complex than that, but it's still very simple. Maybe I can give it to you somehow afterwards. So again, what can you do today? And building on the first point, of course, make sure you are aware of, if you are working with behavioral design, I think we should all be aware of the responsibility that comes with that. And in that direction, also my next point, I think if we are working with behavioral design, it's especially important that we try to anticipate unintended consequences, because I think some designers probably who are like creating behavioral that is not 100% like good, they probably didn't intend that. I think sometimes this is just like maybe ignored, but sometimes it's just like overseen. So to have tools like the impact ripple canvas, or also future scenarios or the future workshop, I think that's good to just be able to foresee those unintended consequences. And also you can read up, of course, on behavioral design and basically the motivation theory behind that and the theory behind UX. I've added some reading that I think is interesting, or that I have like downloaded during the past years, and you can have a look at that afterwards. To my next point, which is about the environmental impact of information communication technologies. And I guess you might all know that, but ICTs have a large environmental impact, and they can be divided into direct effects and indirect effects. And they can further be categorized into three categories. So first order impacts are the direct effects that result from the production, use, and disposal. I think that's very easy. All of us can understand. They are always negative, of course. Yeah. So this is the first order impacts are always negative effects on the environment. The second order impacts are a little bit more complicated. So they are indirect effects on the structure of the economy, production processes, products, and distribution systems. So they can be positive. Like, for example, what we are basically doing today is called demobilization. So we are substituting all of us traveling with this video call over Zoom, and with that we are saving a lot of energy basically, and see greenhouse gas production. And third of all would be order impacts that are also indirect effects that result from, and that's how I explain it, so maybe look it up if you want to make sure you get it correctly, result from human behavior which is enabled, influenced, or triggered by ICTs. So as an example, we have more consumption today stimulated by the impact of information communication technologies on our lifestyles and value systems. So that increases our consumption. So as you can see, the effects are manifold and also really complex. And even though I think that the internet and digital technology in general can feel weightless sometimes, they are actually not weightless. So ICTs produce more greenhouse gas than the aviation industry as a whole. And I think that is like really impressive to know that. And I think therefore it's fair to say that digital is physical, you know? So if you think about it, there is no watching a movie without a server that needs to be built, that needs to be run, and that uses a lot of energy. And the same goes for like images, tweets that you read. You need a phone that needs to be built. I need a computer. We need a lot of things and energy for the meeting that we are having today. So I think it's good to make it clear. Sometimes I also have to do that, that digital is physical and it's not invisible, it's not weightless. And as we UX designers like me, we are generally and often working in the information communication technologies sector. I think it's important for us to know that, because yeah, there are negative effects, but there are also opportunities to use those technologies for good. And there are also things that we can improve about the things we are building and the way we are building them. And if you want to find out more about that specifically, and I think Jeroen told me that that is interesting for you, I really recommend you read Worldwide Ways by Gary McGovern. You can read that for free, but I bought it and I recommend you buy it if you want to read, because it's not expensive. I think it's really kind of him to like have people decide themselves if they want to buy it, so maybe you buy it. And also Sustainable Web Design by Tom Greenwood. I wouldn't be even, yeah, I can't be as perfect and precise as how they show the many ways how ICTs affect the environment and how you can consider that in your daily practice. So I recommend you read up, but maybe later I can tell you some examples. Let's see. And then again, if you do so, if you read about that, educate others, especially in the projects you work on. I try to make it a habit in the meetings that are happening to like raise those questions. So if we are discussing way A and way B, and we are discussing how it affects the user experience and how easy it is to program, I try to also ask the question, what does it mean regarding the energy consumption? What is more efficient? That's also good for the company, by the way. It's not only good for the environment. And yeah, you can start asking those questions. Sometimes it's also important to ask, do we need that? For example, if your company says we need to also film our podcast and upload it on YouTube, you can say, why do we need that? I mean, it has a large environmental impact. So do we actually need that? Is that beneficial in a way that it would would argue for that? And to that, in that same direction, you can also start being more mindful about your personal technology use as well, because I think if you practice in your personal life and see all of those things, like every photo that you take and video that you store, and maybe also you have a personal website, the way the technology used there, if you start looking out for that, you will automatically bring that thinking to the projects you work on, I think, and it will make you more mindful about it. And then my it's my next to last point, but we are almost done. It's about information design. You know, I studied information design, so I should know a lot about it, but I think I know more about UX design, which was also part of my study. Yeah, the point I want to make about information design is information is power. We consume information every day. What we are doing here is information. I'm sharing information with you, and I hope it is powerful. And yeah, without information, we would be lost. We need information to do good decisions, to make the right decision. We need information to know what is going on in the world, and also to form an opinion on that. We need information to create action. Information guides us. Information can help us in critical situations to know what is best for us and for others. And if we stick for a minute with the example of information helping us making the right decision, just imagine a consumption situation. How hard it can sometimes be to know in a supermarket where you have all of those options, to know what is best for your health, but also for the environment. Maybe you want to buy maybe you are like, you're saying, okay, it's okay for me to spend a little bit more money, but I don't know what is the best product for myself and for the environment. And we can imagine how important good information design is in that situation. With my students, for example, I'm in some semesters, we created digital solutions that would help users make the right decision in those situations. And what information do they need in those situations? How does it need to be provided? And that's also what I would recommend to you in the regard of information design. Of course, we need to know how we need to provide information in a way that people can, like, yeah, that people know what they need to know in the specific situation, so that the information actually has the effect that we need it to have. But other than the how, it's also important to consider the when. So when do we need to provide this information, because it can make a large difference. And also what information should we provide our users. And sometimes this also means to stop and think about the brief, for example, you got, and is that actually the information we want to give our users, or do they need other information that is more important? That makes a large difference, I think, when it comes to life-centered design. And my last point is about, and this is very important for me at the moment, and that's what I'm working most on and researching most, is I want to see us develop towards a sustainable view on well-being, because I feel like the view on well-being that we are very used to, for example, in user experience design, is a rather personal view on well-being. It's one that is derived from positive psychology. We are very much, I feel like, focusing on personal or human user needs. And while we are doing that, we are kind of, not completely, but kind of mostly disregarding the well-being of other people, but also nature. And I think we need to expand that rather limited view on our well-being, because it's not correct. It's not how the world works. Our well-being does not exist in a silo. We are connected to other people. We live in an interconnected system. We are connected to the well-being of nature. If we fulfill our own needs, and that in turn will affect the well-being of nature or others around us, this will come back to affect our well-being as well. So we can't have this really simple, narrow look at or view on our personal well-being. We need to acknowledge that we live in this complex, interconnected system. And I think there is a good basis for that. If you read also this quote, which is by Ryan and Deasy, I think you probably also know them. They I read a lot about them when it comes to motivation theory. They wrote, perhaps the concern of greatest importance, not only for psychological theorists, but also for humanity, is the study of the relations between personal well-being and the broader issues of the collective wellness of humanity and the wellness of the planet, which is the point I was trying to make. And also in this quote, maintaining the status quo and holding on to the current conception of well-being are not an option if sustainability is to be achieved. So we need to make that shift. That's what I believe, and what I think will be of huge value for us when it comes to transition to life-centered design. And if you want to do so as well, I think it's good to make yourself acquainted with the concept of well-being in general and also the different approaches. The two authors I was quoting here, Helne and Hirvelami, I think Tula Helne and Tuli Hirvelami. I'm probably pronouncing them all wrong. I'm very, very sorry, but they write a lot about this topic. So this could be a great place to start if you are interested as well. And then I think a good thing to do is simply to reconnect to nature. And I think Jeroen is doing a lot in that department. Because I think it's easy probably for many to understand how our well-being is connected to the well-being of other people around us. But our health is also very much affected by the health and well-being of nature. And I think if you are in, like, for example, if you're standing in a forest and you smell the moss and you hear the birds, I think then you really feel how your well-being is affected, and you feel how much it would affect you. If it disappears in Germany, we have the problem that we have a lot of amazing forests and they are starting to disappear. And for me, that's like, I can't even imagine. Yeah. And so I think that's also a good thing to do. And to summarize, because I'm at the end now, that's a transition I want us to make. I want us to move from human centricity. And again, I told you in the beginning, human-centered design is not like against life-centered design. It is already in the definition, basically, kind of, but the way we practice it is really human-centered. And I want us to move a little bit more towards life centricity and to consider the needs of all life and the whole system, because that's also good for our own well-being. So thank you very much for listening for such a long time. And now I'm interested to hear what you are wondering about, what questions are moving you today. And I also will look at the chat now. Okay. All right. Thank you all. I will share.
Thank you, Katarina, for this beautiful and complete presentation on all the work you've been doing in the last few years.
Yeah, thank you very much. Yeah, and because of the question, can you share the title of this book? I have a reference slide here. Some of the references are X'd out because I didn't use them directly, but only indirectly for my research, and because I'm also writing a blog post on this topic. So I think Jeroen will send you, or can send you my slide if you like, and then you can find
I made a screenshot and I can just put it in the Slack, and then everyone has this. Like,
perfect. Yeah, there you have all of the resources.